I grew up in Toronto, and I remember when I was about 10 years old, my class went on a field trip to the Art Gallery of Ontario. The big exhibit at the time was King Tut and the history of ancient Egypt. At the time, it was literally the coolest thing I had ever seen. My mind was blown, and to this day, I will never forget that. And I'm sure many of you, your children, your grandchildren, have had similarly amazing experiences at a museum. For everyday people like us, especially young kids, museums are the most accessible places to learn about history of all kinds, history to which you may otherwise not be exposed. All you need is a ticket, and many museums are free. They're places of knowledge and wonder. According to the American Alliance of Museums, 97% of Americans believe museums are educational assets for their communities. 92% of adults in this country say museums are nonpartisan providers of educational content. 3/4 of the American public believe museums are an important part of our civil society and have a role in supporting civic knowledge and participation. And while American history books have often told stories of the victor over the vanquished, museums and other nonpartisan institutions have worked hard to try and get it right over the years, to try and tell the whole truth. It hasn't always succeeded, but they seem to be on an onward mission to do this. The Smithsonian Institution, which defines itself as the world's largest museum, education, and research complex, is one of the best examples of this. Through exhibits at its 21 museums, 14 education and research centers, and the National Zoo, the Smithsonian has put on display decades of research and curated American history at the highest possible standard, largely without government interference. That is until now. Earlier this week, the White House announced that it's going to conduct a, quote, comprehensive internal review of selected Smithsonian museums and exhibitions, and that, quote, this initiative aims to ensure alignment with the president's directive to celebrate American exceptionalism, remove divisive or partisan narratives, and restore confidence in our shared cultural institutions, end quote. By the way, this is an internal review, not like a public discussion or hearings or things like that, an internal White House review. And anything that doesn't align with Donald Trump's vision of America will be regarded as so-called improper ideology and removed. Just let that sit with you for a second. The White House will decide what is improper ideology. The administration's first plan is to tackle 8 Smithsonian museums, including the National Museum of American History, the National Museum of African American History and Culture, the National Museum of the American Indian, and the National Portrait Gallery. Additional museums will be targeted in a second phase to be announced later. Trump first took aim at the Smithsonian back in March when he signed an executive order claiming that, quote, the Smithsonian has in recent years come under the influence of a divisive race-centered ideology, end quote. And as such, he's directed Vice President J.D. Vance, who's a member of the Smithsonian's Board of Regents, to remove improper ideology from such properties and make recommendations to Trump on how to decenter race in these spaces. Plain and simple. It's a war on history. Not the history of any one group, but our collective history, as we've learned. Hadar Harris, managing director of the Freedom of Expression Group at PEN America, summed it up this way, quote, the administration's efforts to rewrite history are a betrayal of our democratic traditions and a deeply concerning effort to strip truth from the institutions that tell our national story, from the Smithsonian to our national parks. Understanding our nation's past is critical for us to be able to navigate our nation's future. And right now, all of that is in jeopardy. Joining me now is Pulitzer Prize-winning historian Jon Meacham. He's the Rogers Chair in the American Presidency at Vanderbilt University and an MSNBC political analyst. Jon, it is great to see you. I think this is kind of remarkable. The telling of history in its fullness is what you do for a living, and it's something advanced cultures have come to appreciate, right? That history is beautiful and ugly and complicated and tough and scarred, and we will not learn unless we learn all of it.
History is a divisive narrative. And that's the interesting part of the president's letter, is he says he wants to remove partisan narratives, and we can talk about that, but divisive narratives. Everything's a divisive narrative in American history because it's a human undertaking where we have a battle between, I would argue, what Abraham Lincoln called our better angels and our worst instincts. And part of the majesty and the brilliance of the American founding was that it recognized that we were human, that we were fallen, we were frail, we were fallible. In many ways, the Constitution, I'd argue, is as theological a document as it is a legal document. The reason they made it so hard for us to do anything is because they assumed that most of what we would want to do would be bad. and we've now done everything we can to prove them right through the years. So you're exactly right. We just have to tell the whole story. Now, that doesn't mean that the prevailing narratives of a given set of historians or set of folks is somehow perfect. History is, as I would argue, is as much an art as it is a science. It is a matter of opinion. What do you emphasize? What do you minimize?
Well, which you do in your books as well, right? It is still curation, right? You don't, even when you write because your books are really big and detailed, and still lots of stuff gets left out. I mean that with love.
Yeah. I will say this. My colleague Doris Kearns Goodwin once got a note from a woman who was reading her book on William Howard Taft and Theodore Roosevelt and said it had broken her nose because she had been reading it and then fell asleep. So I have not actually harmed anyone, unlike Doris. Okay, I want that on the record.
So
sure,
noted.
I'm doing this. I'm in the middle of writing a biography of Dwight Eisenhower, the man who ratified an American consensus between the New Deal and conservatism under what President Reagan really embodied. And absolutely, you have to you make choices. That's what museums do. That's what biographers do. That's what journalists do. Guess what? That's what voters and citizens do.
Yep.
And so what this required is not a one size fits all. And again,
right.
I'm not saying that the institutions are perfect. I'm sure there's something that can be made better. And by the way, some years ago, I was on the board of the National History Museum, American History Museum at the Smithsonian. And I think they'd be the first people to say, do they get everything right? No. But let's just call it as we see it. President Trump did not wake up one morning and decide that he wanted to become the Edward Gibbon of America and make a decision about American history. This is part of the project of remaking the country in his image.
Right. And so there are two really important parts to that. One is that I think you've pointed out well that museums should evolve, they should discuss, they should review, and that should be left to curators and experts and maybe outside people and people like you to say, hey, have we gotten this right? Because if you walk into any museum today compared to 50 or 100 years ago, things will be told differently, as well they should. The problem is this concept of alignment with something. That's what worried me. Even the language that the White House used. First of all, it's an internal review, not a public review or a review of the nation's best historians and curators. But this alignment concept worries me a lot because these days, all these things that sound a little authoritarian set off alarm bells in my head.
And rightly, you're exactly right to be underscoring this, I think. And you're also exactly right in your setup about the remarkable place the Smithsonian holds in American culture. The Museum of African American History and Culture is an extraordinary achievement. I defy anyone to stand at that lunch counter and not feel the weight and the pain and, yes, the ultimate goodness of the American experiment. But guess what? That goodness is contingent. And so the reason you stand at the lunch counter, where in 1960, very incredibly brave, nonviolent activists bore witness against a system of segregation, is you stand there to remind yourself of what to do, and Lord knows what not to do. And so is that an alignment? Is recognizing a national mistake and then talking about its rectification and its the ongoing need for attention and care, is that in alignment? That's where you get into a you get on a very, very slippery slope.
Do you ever think about this as you're writing about people whom maybe you chose to write about because you admire some of their successes, and you realize there's dirty laundry, and that's part of the story, right? The fact that there's dirty laundry and then it got washed is part of the story.
That is entirely the story. It is all my. You've already made a mistake here. You've asked for my theory of biography. So very briefly, to me, it's not that people are heroic. It's that flawed people got one or two things right. And isn't that amazing?
Wow.
Now, most people are better than I am. That's not hard, so don't get cocky. But I know that if I do the right thing 51% of the time, that's a hell of a good day. And I don't have that many of those. And so the remarkable thing about Abraham Lincoln is that he ran for the Senate in 1858. And in Southern Illinois, he said blacks should not be on juries. They should not intermarry with white people. He was not for the full rights of citizenship. And yet, in the crucible of what he called the fiery trial, he got to emancipation. Now, his critics on what we would call the left thought it was too slow. His critics on what we would call the right said it was too fast. But he got there. He got there because of the power and the courage of enslaved people who fled the lines and all that. But that's the key.
Right.
Thomas Jefferson, slave owner, absolute embodiment of what we got wrong, what people like me, white Southern Protestants, got wrong for a long time. Still wrote the most important sentence, arguably ever originally rendered in English, that all men are created equal. And as my colleague Annette Gordon-Reed of Harvard says, what do you want from one guy, right? He writes the Declaration of Independence, and we hold him to account for everything else. Absolutely, but how many of us have written the Declaration of Independence?
Right.
So the reason to tell these stories, I believe, is not, again, to put people on a pedestal to worship. It's to put them on a pedestal so more people can see them.